Hello everyone. Welcome to round 2 of PC Tier 4. The first race unfortunately was not streamed because neither Darkness nor I was free to do so. However, we are here for round 2. Round 1, looking at the results, and from what I did see in the chat, very interesting to say the least. And now we're here for Qatar, which is obviously round 2. And joining me, of course, as you can see on your screen, is Darkness.
Hello. How are you doing, mate?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Not bad. I'm excited for this race because Qatar has always been an exciting race, and everyone is always hyped up about the third sector purely because you can go flat out. So 29 laps of this track will be very interesting to see.
Absolutely. I have done a race here before myself, and to say the least, it was very interesting. So what we do have coming up here very shortly is, unfortunately, we do not actually have a track map video on us today, but luckily, I can speak from experience, I guess. But yeah, very nice track in terms of qualifying. Quite good in terms of hot lapping as well. I mean, it is qualifying still, and yeah, if you're not in the dirty air, if you're not really battling anyone, it's actually quite nice to drive. Whereas, obviously, on the other hand, not really easy to battle here.
Indeed, and you've only got the one DRS straight, so it's purely down to the race pace of the drivers.
Absolutely, that is going to be really crucial for these guys to manage, especially considering it is quite a bit of tire wear here, especially on the soft and the medium compound tires. Although the medium and hards quite close to each other in this game, but as far as this particular track is concerned, not too close in that sense.
Right, I've managed to find a very good track map. Unfortunately, if I remember correctly, it's about 70% application of the throttle throughout the entire duration of the circuit or the one lap. So it's going to be a very high speed. So I suspect, whilst there are a lot of corners, from my experience, you've got probably a mid downforce, mid high speed setup, and I think most drivers might be looking to go for the downforce, considering how treacherous the first and second sector can be on the tires and with the corners.
Absolutely, that could be the case, although from what I've seen so far, the case has been that people have been using somewhere in the mid 40s in terms of their front wing, and somewhere in around the 39, 40, 41 range for the rears. So a bit of downforce, to say not the least.
Incredible. I mean, I've played Qatar, I think, twice now or 3 times, and each setup, all varying in downforce, and each one faster than the other. I'm curious to know what setups people have running, and then on top of that, of course, the setups will dictate what kind of tire strategy they have. As you mentioned, the softs and the mediums can die quite quickly, though the mediums and the hards are the optimal strategy. So who's gonna push the limits, and potentially I reckon we'll see at least a couple daring drivers to think they're worthy enough to take on the softs at the start of the race.
Ooh, yeah, I mean, softs could be a good shout, obviously, considering that you know, there's a really big chance of a safety car coming up here. However, it is still quite risky, in my opinion, to do so. Because again, of the tire wear, in this game, or well, it has been the case for the last game as well, softs has just been a qualifying tire, or unless you have some sort of a very late safety car, you really just don't want to use softs. And it's kind of the case here as well. Around what, 5 or 6% tire wear on the softs here is
It is just a bit. So now we've got qualifying, 18 minutes of qualifying, and unfortunately not a full grid. 3 drivers are missing. But that does not mean it's not going to be exciting. So we're still going to have a lot of chaos. And I think the first driver out for their first hot lap is going to be Snatch, currently in the second sector.
Yup, Snatch in the Mercedes, first one out. I'm seeing a lot of Forza Amos in the chat, and obviously on that topic, do you know any of the drivers here? Have you raced with anyone, or perhaps commentated over anyone before?
I did the social stream a few months ago. So I've seen some of these few drivers race, but Snatch is actually one of the drivers I've raced personally with before, back from 2020, F1 2020 through to F1 2022. So I've known him for about a year and a half, and I know he is a very quick driver indeed. And here comes Snatch now, in fact, coming down towards the line to start his first hot lap of the session.
Obviously setting. Oh, that's very close to the track limits there. But yeah, these corners very flowy, and obviously because of their nature, very hard to keep up with them. For whatever reason, this game has decided to reset my graphic settings. I don't know what else it is. It's hopefully not all my setups and stuff. But that's a concern for later, and especially for me, I guess. Currently, still on board with Snatch. There is a very slight chance that there might be traffic towards the final runs here. You can already see in Sector 3 there's a bit of a traffic jam already forming up. Snatch could be blocked here, not sure if he will, but we'll have to see if he does. Very close to the track limits yet again. There's an Alpine in front of him, and the Alpine has to start going now because Snatch is right behind him.
Actually, yeah, a very nice toe.
Yep. Very nice toe comes across.
And the provisional time is a 1:20.617. I honestly don't actually know what kind of times we should be expecting from the drivers. But knowing Snatch, if a 1:26 is what he's put in for the first lap, that's going to be a hard time to beat.
Absolutely. I mean, it's no joke. A 120, and I'm guessing as the track evolves, we could be dipping into the 19s here as well. As Ballant, I guess, goes provisional pole with a 20.5, only a 10th away from Snatch. And yeah, I do apologize if I do say any names wrong. This is again my first time commentating over here, and do feel free to correct us actually in the comments as well.
Let's have a look. Who else might be on a hot lap? Got the Alpine coming to the third sector. Amos in the Alpine. Seems to be clear. Let's see what his first lap will be. 1:20.5 by Lucas and a 1:20.7 for Amos.
Interesting. Lucas only 900ths off of Ballant. And Nathan says it should be seeing low 20s or high 19s. Yeah, that's what I'm guessing as well. So I think pole should be somewhere around that. Going on board with North Frankie. Yes, going through the second sector currently. Let's see what can he do through the second sector. Doesn't give us any information, but that's fine. I guess we'll just have to make something of it. 59 in the middle sector. So the final sector. And he's boxed. He's decided to not finish his back lap. Then moving on, we can go to
we might have some team orders here. Hold on a minute. Marcel, oh no, never mind. ET8, Danny Co. let through Marcel for his lap. I think Marcel might have invalidated his lap, so now it's just down to Danny on his lonesome, going into the third sector to start his first hot lap of the session. His teammate set a 1:20.473, and that was his provisional best. So let's see what his teammate can do now, getting ready for his first hot lap of the session. DRS now wide open. Let's see what he can do. Let's actually jump on board with him. Go through each of the corners. Now approaching the first corner, typically gearing down to about 5th gear. Considering how fast, and immediately his back end is just stepping out, and unfortunately that will certainly lose him a good few tenths, and is continually stepping out. And I think Danny will be certainly ditching that lap, looking to hopefully preserve those tyres. And if he's got enough fuel, perhaps he's going to go for an immediate hot lap, or just pit straight away. Still 10 and a half minutes remaining in the session, so he does have enough time to grab himself a fresh set of tyres. Though, having said that, he sets a purple first sector. What?
Yeah,
I love those bugs. Those are the best kind of bugs.
Only if his lap time was actually purple through the first sector. Right, well, currently Danny the only one on a quote-unquote lap. We do see Igor, Cameron, and a few other guys coming out of the pits as well now for their out laps.
I think the one driver, at least for myself, I'm going to keep a good eye on, because I know he is very quick. And he's been very mighty through several seasons. I don't know how many seasons exactly that I've raced with him, but Snatch is going to be the driver for me to look at. As he now comes round for the final corner. He's just doing that good old trick in this game. If you hold half application of brake and full application of the throttle, you can burn your fuel. So now coming across the line, Snatch previously setting a 1:20.617, coming towards the first sector, or the first corner, sorry. Let's see how much he can improve. He actually gears down to the 4th gear for that first corner, which I find is quite low, but this is Snatch speaking. Snatch might know something I don't about this game. Let's see as he goes into corners 4 and 5, very high-speed corners, still having to brake just a tad bit. All about the downforce, and he's invalidated. Why? A decent start for Snatch, and unfortunately his second lap invalidated. But we got Killian just behind him, starting a hot lap, second hot lap. Just, what is that, 12 thousandths of a second slower than Snatch's time ahead of him. So currently sitting in P4. Let's see what the Aston Martin driver can do. Going through that first sector, traffic getting out of the way, and now crossing the line. It's about 1/10 slower, just under a tenth slower than his previous time. So he's got some work cut out for him in this middle sector and third sector. Fortunately, though, it does look as though there won't be much traffic in his way. Not unless he catches up to the third sector in the next few moments. Very smooth sailing through that last corner, the Alfa Romeo. Nope, Ferrari getting out of the way. Now to the nice, smooth right-hander after right-hander section of this track. Quick snap to the left to finish out the rest of the track. He just goes a bit wide, dives into the pits after such a promising lap. Unfortunately, that'll be it for Killian thus far into this session. And I've just switched to Igor, and he is on a flying lap, and he's just set a purple first sector. So now Igor is trying to challenge for pole, sitting at a 1:20.674 in 6th place. Can the Williams driver put it on pole? Or at the very least, like many others before him, not keep it valid. I'd like to see a few drivers keep it valid. They've been setting some great pace, also some great timing, sorry, but they haven't quite kept it together. Now onto the third sector. He's still smooth sailing. He's got no traffic at all in his sights. So now he rounds the final corner. His ERS is completely depleted. His ERS is now wide open across the line. Is it going to be enough? It's a 120.5. It's only 1/10 of an improvement, but that 1/10 has put him 5/1000ths quicker than Balint in P4. So an incredible lap for the Williams driver as Balint puts in the new fastest lap of the session. A 120.3.
Yeah, we're
Speak of the devil, and he'll put in a hell of a lap.
Absolutely, I mean, we're into the low 20s already. We have Simon Weigang in the chat predicting a low 20 as well. So let's see what can these guys do, considering we have about six and a bit minutes left in this qualifying. We do have time for another run, and that's Lucas in the Ferrari going pole again with a 20 point. Not bad. The track is obviously ramping up by quite a bit. A few drivers in the midfield as well improving on the time. We have Oil in the Williams, who is going through the second sector. A new name for us. We haven't really covered him in this qualifying, in this session so far. What about Frankie? He's invalidated another one of his laps, so he's struggling a little bit, but he does have enough time to go again, and hopefully with fresher tires. Watching Banazak now in the Red Bull. I think he's backed up for his lap as well, low on fuel. Quite a few of these drivers haven't really set a lap yet, and the ones who have, well within about 7 or 8 tenths of each other. So this is looking good for these guys, so far at least.
ETA is currently coming through the third sector. He's managed to keep it valid. Okay, I thought he almost invalidated there. Now coming around the final corner, Red Bull will be getting out of his way. No, the Red Bull's going into the pit, so he's going to have a clear track to the line. And the first hot lap of the session for the McLaren driver is going to be a 120.59, 3/1000ths of a second slower than Daniel in P8. This is some incredible qualifying lap times by everyone so far, because we've only just got 7/10ths splitting the top 13, with only 4 drivers still yet to put in a valid lap time. Yeah. I suspect a lot of them are now waiting for the dying minutes, slap on a fresh set of softs, and go out right at the last chance that they've got to put in an absolute stonking lap.
Absolutely, the last few minutes are crucial, but you need to remember we do have close to full grid here, so yeah, it is very much possible that we could have a bit of traffic towards the end for the few of those drivers who do really wish to be starting really late, or some of them who will start really early. And Amos was something we haven't noticed. He's gone up into P2.
P2, an incredible lap for the Alpine driver. So now I think it's just EC8 coming into the pits now in this whole waiting game. Who's going to be the first one to come out, try and set the final session? In fact, I can see that's the pit crew for the McLaren's coming out. Who will be the first to come out? Fresh set of softs. Try and burn as much fuel as they can. They got clean air. No one else is on track. And get in that final lap of the session. 3 minutes remaining. And I can see some of the garages opening up. One car's already out. Ferrari's coming out. AlphaTauri's come out as well. So now this is when the madness will start. And hopefully we can see the likes of Frankie, Sol, Banana, or Banas, Zach, sorry, and Patrick put in the lap. As they are still yet to set a lap. In fact, Patrick is the first driver out of the pits for the session. I feel like they might be the confident type of driver who thinks they can go right at the end of the session and put it straight on pole. And if they can, kudos to them, because that's an impressive skill to be that confident in your one lap. And so let's see what Patrick can do. Banana, oh sorry, I'm just going to stick with Zach. I'm going to say Banana too many times by accident. Zach's also out on an out lap. Hopefully we can see him put in a good lap. Sol's just come out. Frankie's just coming out as well. I think everyone on the grid is, or everyone in this lobby is now going to be on the track. And Patrick's got so much clean air to him.
Absolutely. I mean, in a sense, it is quite good to be the first one out because no traffic in front of him. I mean, just have a look at Sector 2, Sector 1 is just trains of cars all following close to each other, whereas, Patrick's in a league of his own, at least on track currently. However, you just miss out on that track evolution as he's starting his lap with around a minute and a bit to go, minute and a half to go that remains in this qualifying. You don't really get everything out of the track that you really need. Although very minor is what I'm gonna guess is the track evolution here, especially in the last few minutes. You still need whatever you can get if you don't want to stick it on pole. And I don't really wanna move on over to whatever's happening in Sector 2 or 3, but you can look at the track map for yourself. A massive car park there, and yeah, let's just hope nobody gets held back too much. I think everyone should be fine as of yet, as a few drivers have already started the lap. Patrick locking up his rear a bit, going through that very tricky corner, trying to push as much as possible. Fourth gear running off completely wide, using every little inch of the track. That is what you have to do around here, because if not, then it is pretty much wraps for you, because you will be losing out on quite a bit of time through here.
Indeed. Now let's see Patrick's coming through that third sector, that famous third sector that everyone praises for how smooth it can be and how much fun it can be. But now it's all down to this final corner and this one lap. Patrick coming around the final corner. His DRS is depleted, his low fuel mode is on, so he's got everything he needs perfect. But is the lap going to be perfect enough? Checkered flag is out, and it's a 120.5. That's the second row, provisional second row for Patrick. That's an incredible start to the session. And we've got Zach to next cross the line, taking that second row. And it's a Red Bull lockout for the second row. 6/1000ths quicker than his teammate. And his teammate's actually on a flyer coming round that final lap. So we'll have to see what he does as well. McLaren to cross the line next. I believe that is going to be the likes of Marcel going 5th place. But now it's the Red Bull. Is he going to ruin that lockout? He is. He's going to put his car up onto the front row. So now the top order has changed. Can anyone challenge this? And my eyes are sitting on Snatch. He's coming down towards the final straight. And he's coming towards the checkered flag, sorry. It's a 120.405 for Snatch. So just third on the grid. Oh, sorry, third row on the grid for the session. Haas next across the line along with ET8. Danny crosses for 11th place. Daniel improves up into 9th place. The last across the line will be Alex for the Alpine. What can he do? Going from 14th, I think, to only up to 13th. The end of that session. Yeah, it was.
Well, a very interesting qualifying there.
Very interesting, and indeed a very good lap by the Ferrari. That's an astonishing lap to be the first one in the session, the only one in the session to go into the 119s, clearing P2 by 0.3. We've got ourselves a grid where every driver who's managed to put in a valid lap time is all within 9.5 tenths of each other. Unfortunately, we have lost Frankie and Sol. They weren't able to put in, well, I haven't lost them, but they haven't put in a valid lap time, so unfortunately they're starting at the back of the grid. But I mean, I'm not sure about you, but I've seen many drivers all very quick, and they have gone from the back of the grid to the front of the grid to win it before. So I've got my faith in them to be able to pull it back from this. And they may not have a qualifying lap, but they may have the race pace, who knows?
Absolutely. They were struggling a bit with the qualifying here, obviously because of the invalidations and such. That is also something we'll have to look out for in the race, because there's a very high chance that these guys end up with a 3 second or something. So that's something we'll have to look out for. As far as race pace goes, yeah, who knows? They could do a last to first here, perhaps. Maybe it's not just their day in qualifying, but yeah, maybe the race pace is a bit of a strong suit, especially, I guess, for Snatch, because he wasn't P6. I mean, he isn't P6 after the qualifying. Seems to be struggling a bit after, setting up quite a few early expectations in the session.
Indeed. Now, let's see. We've got just a moment to wait before we get into the session. around Qatar. Now, the interesting thing to try and work out is the one stop typically in this game. I know in 22 it was definitely a very different game in terms of the grip and all of that, but now it's a lot better. The tires seem to be manageable. So the one stop's definitely on their radar. I don't think anyone would be daring enough or crazy enough to try and do a two-stop. If they manage to pull off a two-stop, that's incredible driving by them. But I think realistically, we're going to see a lot of hard mediums or medium hards around the track today. As we now have the 5 red lights. And take it away for the first lap.
All right, lights out and away we go. A very good start for Lucas over here. By the looks of it, Balin can't challenge him, although Amos very, very close to him, going around the outside on the hards of Balin. Still on the outside, gets pushed off wide. Unfortunately, has to succumb to Balin over there. We can see Cameron moving up a few places himself. Snatch battling it out with Banas in the back. And yeah, all of them falling really closely. Doesn't seem like there's any sort of collisions so far in this race. We'll have to see what's up with that. The Patrick losing out of 3 positions from the start here, down into P11, following very close to the rest of the pack. And I think Igor actually has spun out. He's gone down 10 positions. Not very good for him.
Indeed, not a very good start, but I mean, they're all on the hard combat tires, so the strategies must be the same. And I'm sure Igor will have the concentration now to just get his head down and get to the pack. It's very close between everyone so far, Alex, with the most improvements, along with Oil, the Williams and Alpine driver. And there it is, the possible race strategies are one stop, hards to mediums, predicted to stop between lap 15 and 21. Though I'm sure many are going to try and pull the stunt, the hard compound stunners. We're going to see the Williams and the AlphaTauri going too wide down the main straight. Oil and Patrick, but Oil with the inside line and definitely a lot more pace has managed to easily take that position into the 10th position, 10th place, sorry. And I think there might be perhaps higher downforce there because it didn't look like he had used much of his ERS coming down that main straight.
He did dump quite a bit of it at the beginning of it, but yeah, I think he has decided to kind of conserve a little bit because high tire wear, high downforce, very hard to regain the energy back here unless you're following a car really closely for a few laps. So from what I know, this is obviously the best that they can do. The fact that he's even made a move, it's not the easiest of things to do here, but obviously not impossible. We're not at Monaco. We can see them in the back. Daniel and Danny, both the Ds, have pitted for mediums. I think both of them did have damage by the end of it. Majority of the pack still on the hards, though. Doesn't seem like anyone has any damage so far.
Now it just seems to have settled between the whole grid. Doesn't look like anyone's really going for a move, but it is now the end of the second lap, and as soon as Lucas crossed the line, DRS will be enabled. Drag reduction system, opening of the rear wing to help encourage overtakes and fastest laps. So you can see the fast lap actually tumbling down the order. And with only one DRS straight, I mean, whilst it does encourage overtakes, not on this track. This track, you have got to be absolutely on the ball and keeping up with your drivers ahead of you. Otherwise, as soon as you lose outside that 1 second, you have got to be very careful with your car. Because dirty air, whilst it impacts your race heavily, dirty air isn't the biggest problem here. As you mentioned before, it's the tires that are going to be the huge worry.
Absolutely. I mean, I have stretched on the tires for about 27 or so laps here. The hards, obviously. It is possible to do it, but it's really not worth the risk, considering that you would obviously end up risking a puncture, which will come at around 75% or so in this game. So it's really not worth taking the risk, and as long as everyone can keep it safe and nobody really loses too much time, a hard medium is obviously set.
So now they're all coming through the third sector. DRS is going to be enabled for everyone except for Lucas. So Lucas will have to defend from the likes of the Red Bull and the Alpine behind, who are going to be very close, 6/10 behind at the start of the straight. And now coming down towards the end of the straight, he's not going to use any of his ERS. And I think all of them will be trying to play as conservative as possible and just wait for when the tires start to drop off, or potentially a driver error is made ahead of them, and that'll be their time to shine, their time to capitalize on the move. As Frankie is unfortunately the first driver to fall victim to track limits and now receive a 3-second time penalty. Unfortunately, 3 seconds cannot be served in a pit stop. So that's going to be quite a horrible penalty to have to serve at the end of the race. Hopefully they'll be able to pull a consistent gap of 3 seconds behind to help reduce the impact of the penalty.
Yep, that is what he'll have to do. He has to keep on pushing at this point and make sure that obviously by the end of it, he has enough of a gap, in that 3 seconds that nobody's with it, and obviously making sure that he doesn't pick up any more penalties, because that's going to be, I'd say, quite a bit of a trend here, because it's very easy to pick up track limit warnings because you're pushing. Very easy to understand, especially when there's so many cars ahead of you with all of their dirty air, and that's need in the AlphaTauri in P12 picking up another 3-second time penalty, the second one of this race already in just 4 laps. So the front runners, especially Lucas, will have to make sure they don't pick anything up, because that could be pretty much a race ruin for them.
Indeed. And hopefully, as well as that, you've got to make sure they break in time for the pit. Otherwise, they will receive a 5-second time penalty, which will not be served unless they pit again or they finish the race. Unfortunately, we didn't. I'm not sure if it was caught on the stream, but Marcel's just managed to get past. Oh, sorry, lose a position to Killian. So the Aston Martin. I can't get team names right. The Aston Martin is now through into 7th place.
Absolutely, that was a pretty good move. We did catch it on stream, so yeah, that is what he'll be having to do a lot more now. Considering Snatch not too far ahead up the road, he might have to use a bit of his ERS to catch up to Snatch, considering he's a 9/10 behind him, but looking good for Killian so far.
Snatch is just chilling. He's not used a single bit of his ERS, and he's just enjoying the race in 6th place, waiting for his time to come. And I feel like he's going to be one of many drivers. Marcel as well, he's got still quite a lot of ERS. Patrick as well. Patrick's up to 11th place with about 100% ERS. So a lot of drivers seem to be conserving their ERS, but unfortunately Lucas now, as I say that, he's been conserving, but he hasn't been conserving how much track he takes, and now pushing the limits. He's got a 3-second time penalty to serve at the end of this race, and now he has to push it. At least in the second stint of this race, he certainly has to push it.
Yeah, well, that's Alex making a move going into turn 1 on Marcel yet again. Marcel losing out on 2 positions in 2 consecutive laps in the same corner. Marcel is struggling for a bit for the pace, I'm guessing. Not sure what's happening to him, but he's just not on it as of yet. Oil catching up to Marcel in the McLaren, and a very nice day Oil to say none the least. But as we were saying earlier, Lucas with a 3-second time penalty, that is going to be really bad for his race. He does have still a lot more ERS compared to the people around him, but it's really easy to burn it away really quickly, and he'll have to start pushing a lot more than what he had originally planned to, I guess, start pulling away slowly, because if he doesn't, then, well, there's a lot of cars that are within the 3-second range, and he could be losing a lot of positions here.
Indeed. Now, it's more or less a matter of waiting game, but having said that, Snatch is now just 2/10 off of Zach, just ahead of him. He's going to have DRS, and that DRS won't necessarily close the gap. If anything, it's going to help him to make the overtake done very quickly. He's catching very slowly, though, as it looks as though Zach might have a much... He's not using the ERS, but it also looks as though maybe Zach is using his ERS. He's maybe got a higher or a lower downforce, so he's got better speed down that main straight.
Could be, as we can see, Cameron in the Ferrari very close to Amos, fighting for the podium positions here. Realistically speaking, it is for the top 3, considering the gap to Lucas for these guys. It's going to be devastating for Lucas if he can't pull off his strategy properly here. That's going to be at least a P6 for him. Snatch getting closer to Zach in the Red Bull. He's not used his ARS still. He's only about a tenth and a half away from him. No place to make a move here. Doesn't make sense to make a move here either, since the DRS straight is coming up. But he does seem to be struggling a bit in the final sector. I'm guessing that's because he's just really close to Zach, and that is obviously causing him to lose a bit of time. Although he's really close here, if he does decide to use the ERS, he could
Zach
perhaps
making
make
a massive
move.
mistake out of the corner as well. So now with the ERS and the DRS, it's going to be a drag race. There's a bit of a contact between the two of them, the rear right and the front left for Zach and Snatch, but unfortunately, Snatch could not quite close that gap, and the DRS
Zach's
did
made
not
a
help
mistake.
him, but it doesn't matter because Zach has gone deep on the brakes and Snatch is up into P5.
Yup, that is what he was waiting for, maybe a mistake, because he was too quick on the straights to make a move. He is clearly using a low down for setup, and that has come through for Snatch up into P5, now snatching away that position from Zach. Now next up is Killian, wondering if he can do the same. That's Zach making another mistake. He seems to be struggling to get on power here. Perhaps his tires are too hot.
Perhaps so, yeah. As mentioned during the qualifying session, the setups really do dictate whether or not your tires die very quickly or not. And I think at this point, he might have a good setup, but that setup is not doing wonders for his tires at all. He's now under pressure from Killian behind, and Alex behind him as well. They keep up this close battle all the way up to the end of the third sector. He's not going to just lose one position. He's going to possibly use two positions as Lucas now receives another penalty for track limits. This is not going his way, as Frankie is now also getting a second penalty for track limits. And now here comes the main straight. Killian is not using any ERS, nor is Alex. In fact, Alex has fallen a little bit behind. And I think it just might be another time for waiting for driver error before they can close that gap and make the overtake.
Yup, it is really hard to overtake Zach here, so Killian just has to play that patient game, perhaps get his ARS up for a few laps and then start putting real pressure on him, because I mean he is putting a lot of pressure on him through the corners, obviously because of the higher downforce setup, but clearly Zach only has made a mistake so far, only one of them, so yeah, he's not completely lost it just yet, and obviously him being well within the DRS and the slipstream range of Snatch is also helping him out quite a bit here. So Killian just hoping that Zach can make a mistake, Need picking up another 3 seconds. So we have 3 drivers with penalties all in 6 seconds. But yeah, coming back to what the topic was, Killian just has to wait and wait and wait. He might not be able to overtake him if Zach does not make another mistake. He might just have to try and outdo him in this strategy if that is the case.
And it is now just as they cross the line, it'll be starting to lap 10. Just 5 more laps to go of this before drivers think about opting for their second stint for potentially mediums, or if any of them, try and go 20 laps before pitting for the softs. But even then, 9 laps is going to be very risky on the softs. And I can't imagine any of these drivers trying to make a risky move like that when so much is out on the line.
Absolutely not. 9 laps would be a killer, not only for the tires but also for the drivers driving. It's going to be really, really tough to stretch them out for 9 laps, so it has to be mediums until the end. Watching Patrick as well, following really up close to Oil. Oil was catching Marcel a bit before now, but currently still hanging around that 7/10 to a second gap, not really gaining much on him. I wonder if he's saving his ERS. No, he's using his ERS down to 43%, so yeah, it's not really looking too good for Oil here. He might have to start pushing a bit more and obviously conserve a bit of that ERS, so natural pace, raw pace is what he's looking for. But currently he seems to be struggling with that. If we move just a bit behind in the grid again, Need picking up another 3 seconds, whereas Soul, Frankie and Need, as a matter of fact, are quite close to each other, so this is also a battle we will be keeping an eye on as we move on forward. Cameron once again not able to get close to Amos or not close enough to Amos at least. Amos really nailing that final corner by the looks of it.
And ET8 Danny, who had to pit right at the start of the race, unfortunately involved in a first lap or second lap incident, now receives a 3-second time penalty on ultimate strategy as well, after having to pit for the mediums 8 laps ago. So I suspect he will be trying to pit for the hards again, maybe at the end of the race, or is he going to go for hard, medium, medium? We'll have to see how far he can stretch this first stint out with the mediums.
It has to be a hard, medium, medium. He can't. There's no point in going back to the hards. He should have done it a long time ago. So yeah, it has to be a hard, medium, medium until the end. Unfortunately, that is his as well as Daniel's race pretty much over. But they do have their own little battle going on. And let's not forget here, one big mistake is all it takes, and a safety car might be out, and those guys will be right back into the game as well. So it's not completely over for them, but as of yet, it's not looking too good, obviously.
There's just still 3 more laps of quiet, but having said that, we're going to have a couple of battles going down the main straight. Oil having a 2-wide battle with, I think that was Patrick. Patrick now head up into the last point scoring position for this race, and as well, I think a Red Bull or an Alpine was trying to fight. They had 1/10 of a gap, but unfortunately did not quite have the downforce nor the setup to be able to catch up.
Yeah, a few of these drivers are getting really close, but none of them getting close enough to make a move. And Oil, yeah, he looks like he has oil on his tires because he's struggling a lot. And that's Marcel in P9 picking up a 3-second time penalty. So yeah, the penalties have started rolling in, and yeah, Oil just did not have the DRS on Marcel there, and he got passed quite easily by Patrick, and almost an 8/10 gap already in a matter of a sector and a half. So yeah, Oil really struggling quite a bit here. Cameron keeps getting close to Amos, but doesn't seem to be getting too close to make a move. I think he just wants to sit back and gain a bit of time. Is that Snatch picking up a 3-second time penalty, as Banas having a bit of a glimmer of a hope here now, since it's going to be really easy to overtake him. Also considering the fact that actually Snatch does have a lot more DRS. Jillian though, he wants to do something about Banas in P6, getting really close there, going for the move on the outside after switching from the inside. A bit more of wheel banging, luckily no proper contact, none of them getting sent around, and this is some proper racing we were waiting to see.
Indeed. We've got Killian 2/10 back. We're starting to see a few gaps fall. Marcel's got a 1.3 second gap ahead of him. Oil with a 1.4 second gap ahead of him. So a few gaps starting to form, and a few trains are starting to properly get together now. So it's a matter of waiting, more or less now waiting, because as each driver wants to try and for an overtake, obviously Alex going very wide off of the track there ahead of Marcel, and that's certainly not going to help him with track limit warnings. This might just be his second warning, and he'd be on his last leg before 3 seconds. But now it's just down to what are they going to do for their pit strategy. Because I think these tires,
oh my God,
they definitely won't be dead, but they certainly will be starting to want to get removed off the tire. Certainly starting to lose some pace. And I mentioned that now goes the Red Bull, the Alpine, Ferrari. Alpine are double stacking, in fact, and there goes Marcel as well. The Ferrari of Cameron having to lock up, struggling to get his car stopped just in time before the pit limiter line. And you can see all of the pit crew with the medium tires all ready to go. Alpine teammate Alex was stopped just for about half a second there, I'd imagine, in that pit stop. So certainly will not help him with his race at all. But we'll have to see, will he have the pace on the mediums to recover from a slow double stack, as Patrick now receives a 3-second time penalty for track limits.
Things are
But
getting
now it's
spicy in
teammate
the back
Ferrari,
here.
Lucas.
Sorry for cutting you off, Darkness. Things are getting spicy back here between Need and Oil. Both of them are going side by side for quite a while here. And Frankie picking up another 3 seconds. Lucas has 9 seconds worth of penalties now. And Frankie getting really close to the rear of Soul as well. So, oh my god, this contact between Soul and Frankie. Soul gets spun around. As a matter of fact, not optimal for his strategy. Frankie will have to box to change his wing. Soul has lost the time because of spinning out. Both of the strategies down in the drain. Yellow flags through the second sector. Luke is finally pulling off into the pits, and I'm guessing everyone else will be following very closely. No, Ban is staying out and Snow is Snatch. I guess they really want to extend off on these hards. And answering a question that was put in the comments, it is not really too early to pit for the mediums. Actually, it should be around the perfect time to pit for the mediums. But clearly, Snatch and Banners really want to stretch out their hearts for as long as possible. Maybe they do have quite a bit of juice left in them. They do want to pit a bit later compared to the others.
And maybe that'll be the best strategy for them, considering they've now got Igor with a 10-second gap ahead of them. And we've actually got Lucas fighting with a Red Bull ahead of him. That's Blalint, sorry. And Lucas fighting for position. Blalint in the lead of the net pit stop strategy.
Absolutely, and by the current looks of it, if Banners does pit, he will come out somewhere around P8 or P9. So yeah, he has to pit this lap. If he doesn't, then yeah, it's not going to be good for his strategy. But yeah, what's not helped them either is the fact that Snatch and Banners obviously have been going at each other for quite a few laps at this point. Both of them have lost a lot of time. And Lucas with another 3 seconds. He's up into 12 seconds now. Banners does pit. What about Oil? Oil's staying out still, while the other guys do decide to pit, and I'm guessing Igor will also be pitting with the train that's behind him. Multiple cars, both the Ferraris going side by side momentarily there, but they do have to back off. Igor slows down quite a bit and gets blocked. He has to stay out for another lap, and that will be Amos making a move on Igor, or not. Igor still staying out. This is all cooking up right now and going completely south for him. And that's a Ferrari spinning out. That is Cameron, who's completely gone off there. And I think that might have been contact with his own teammate. And he spun out once again. Not sure about the damage. Retired on the track, and that is it for him. Will there be a safety car? I don't think so.
I think, if anything, we just might have no, we're not going to even have a VSC. I think that car's going to be cleared away very quickly. And we've got Snatch in the lead race with a 5.6 second gap behind him. And further back, Lucas with a 12 second gap behind. So if we look at the gap to leader, he's got an 18 second gap clear to the next driver behind, the next competitor behind, who is already pitted. So now it's just down to how far can he pull these hards before he has to pit for the second stint. Snatch, I don't know what kind of strategy he might be going for, but I mean, if he's got the pace, he's got the pace. Oil's going to pit. Snatch is not pitting. So Snatch is comfortable on those tires, so much so he's going to wait for everyone else behind him to pit before he does.
Yep, what about Iker? I'm guessing he's going to pull in. Yeah, he has pulled in. I think it's one lap a little too late. Snatch, on the other hand, I think he might be going for a soft, or he might just be hoping for a safety car. Luke is setting the fastest lap of this race, 23.2 on the mediums. We can see Amos getting really close to Ballant now. Both of them seem to have pit around the same time. Ballant is quite low on the ERS, though his headlight is flashing under 10%. That means he will be at a massive engine power deficit, considering that we already have quite a bit of it. And that's Frankie, who's gone into the pits and retired from this race. Will not be a safety car, but yeah, Ballant is not looking good so far. It could be an easy move for Amos back up into I'd say, this actually might be for a race win here between Amos and Ballant, considering the situation up ahead, because Lucas does have a lot of penalties on him and he's not too far ahead of these guys, and Snatch is yet to pit. It could be that this race might come down to Balint and Amos in terms of winning, and that's Oil picking up a 3-second time penalty now.
I feel like Snatch, the only thing that can help secure his race victory is he now pits. He's done with those hard tires. And what is he going for? He's going for the mediums. He's going to have 2 laps or 3 laps fresher mediums to the rest of the grid around him. So it certainly will be a huge advantage in the later stages of the race. But how much time will he be lost trying to stretch out that hard stint?
Quite a bit, and shifting our focus onto Amos and Balint. Amos actually did not use the ERS. He lifted off before overtaking Balint. I think he wants to stay behind, conserve the ERS, and towards the end is where he wants to make a move here, because he can see Balint, he is struggling without the ERS, and if Amos does go ahead, he might not be able to make enough of a gap to Balint to get out of that DRS. But this is not helping them, because Panis, or rather Zach, is pulling in close. So if anything, Balint is helping his teammate and the rest of the train behind him catch up to Amos, and it could be very, very spicy here. It's all down to Amos as to what he wants to do. Does he want to make a move and try and pull away, or does he want to just wait it out and risk getting caught up by the pack behind him, which already has well within the 1 second gap now?
I think this could be the lap where we might have Amos try and make the move for the potential lead of this race, because he has kept that gap very close. He's now 2/10 behind coming into that final corner. He's going to have a massive ERS advantage over, and he is deploying it. He's got DRS. He's closing that gap down. He's going too wide. There's a clean move, a very simple move for the Alpine driver, and well before the braking zone, he is now in a comfortable provisional P2 position for this race.
Absolutely, that was a very good move. Could be a very crucial move for his race as well. Now, completely down to him to pull away and see what he can do with that gap. Yellow flags in Sector 3. That, by the looks of it, is Danny who spun out. Patrick picking up another 3 seconds. Danny's still going very slowly. Not sure what's happened here. Does not seem to have any damage though. So that is going to be fine. Back to green flag racing immediately.
Daniel with a new fast lap, a 1:23.157. I have to say, I'm quite surprised that it's Daniel to be putting in the fastest lap, when Snatch was the one who's pitted most recently, and he is still yet to put in a good lap.
To be fair, Daniel does have a lot of gap ahead of him, a lot of free air to play with, whereas Snatch came out in traffic, has stayed in traffic, is struggling a bit with the with the dirty air of the cars ahead. I mean, there are quite a few of them. Alex now picking up a 3 second. Need picking up another 3 second. Well, by the looks of it, he does have quite a bit of a need for extending the track limits by the looks of it. Zach, will there be team orders between the Red Bull guys? We will have to see. Zach going round the outside of Valiant, and no, not by the looks of it. Both of them fighting it out tooth and nail. Zach not willing to give up the position to Killian behind him. Balint does not want to give the position behind him because he knows he's slower, and if Balint does get overtaken, Killian, Patrick, both right behind him. Marcel might end up joining these guys as well. He's only 2 seconds behind. So this battle spicing up between the Red Bull guys. That's an AlphaTauri of Patrick looking down the inside of Killian, but decides or rather stops somehow without causing a collision. Amos is catching up to Lucas here, but we will stay focused because there is quite a bit of a gap still between the two of them. This is indeed the fight for P2 and P3 on the podium, unless something can be done with Amos. Maybe he can make a mistake. Lucas, another 3 seconds. That's 15 seconds. Oh, Valiant picks up a 3 second time penalty now, so he's out of contention. Might be out of contention for a podium here. What can Zach do? Perhaps snatch away a P2 from him. Killian really close to these guys as well. This is very interesting. That is Zach going down the inside. Oh, the 3 wide on the main straight here. Zach gets past. Need retires from this race in the pits. And that is Killian getting past Valiant as well. So he's lost out on 2 positions in 1 lap. Not good.
Not good indeed, and unfortunately, as you just said, Need is
VSC.
retired from the race. That's the third driver gone from this race, and VSC now. So this is going to be interesting, because if the VSC stays for any longer, there's a couple drivers who are coming towards the entrance of the pits. Actually, no, Daniel's gone past. If anything, it's going to be Danny who's going to be the only driver who could pit and lose less time in the pits and gain a huge advantage. But it's only 9 laps left, as we mentioned at the start. Softs for 9 laps, that's unrealistic. I don't think anyone will pit for the softs.
Yeah,
and if this virtual safety car stays for at least another lap, I think, if anything, we'll just have a lot of drivers getting the opportunity to save fuel if they need to, or recharge their battery if they need to.
That might actually be the case. DRS enabled, that means green flag racing once again. And they're all back at it. Quite a bit of the battery percentage has been recharged for a few of these drivers, although by the looks of it, Zach, I mean, he was close to 0%, so that is quite a bit for him, but still not enough. Amos seems to have lost a bit of time on the VSC restart, at least Zach behind him. Lucas seems to have lost a lot of time to Amos. Amos only 1.2 seconds away from here. He's pretty much already won the race as long as he does not make any mistakes. Question is, will he make a move on the track? By the current looks of it, he might, as we can see Snatch getting past Marcel for P7.
Snatch really trying to light up those fresh mediums that he's got around the drivers. He's got 4-lap mediums, whereas Marcel behind 8 laps and Patrick ahead with 7-lap odd mediums. So he's going to have a definitely huge advantage, but it's a question of now with 7 laps remaining and the number of penalties everyone has. We only have 3 drivers, no penalties. Can Snatch still recover from this? We know that Lucas will drop quite a way down the order. Patrick will lose at least a few positions with the 6 seconds, but Snatch with 3 seconds. Are those 3 seconds going to be the end of his race and potentially drop him out of the points? We'll have to see. It depends on how many penalties everyone else around him gets. He's got 1 second to catch, and of course DRS will not have DRS unless he's in that 1 second window. Sorry. Of which he's just on the cusp of getting it.
He is using up a lot of his ERS to get within that 1 second, and actually so is Amos. That is why he has lost out on all of that time now. That is why Zach has caught up. Patrick picking up another 3 seconds. But yeah, the reason why Zach is well within, he literally has DRS right now because Amos has used up pretty much all of his battery. He used up too much in the efforts of catching up to Lucas, although all he should have done is manage the battery and manage the pace, manage the tires until the end, and he would have won it anyways. Whereas now, he is very low on the ERS. He won't be anywhere below the podium positions, but his win does come into risk again, considering Zach is now well within half a second now. So Amos really has lost out on a lot of time. And as you mentioned as well, Zach with a 2-lap tire advantage here. So it is literally playing into Zach's hands right now and being taken away from Amos while Lucas tries his best to lose as little positions as possible.
Zach now 3/10 back from Amos. Amos just might be under pressure here. We come into the 3rd sector. We're going to start the 24th lap in just a moment here. And can Amos defend? Amos at 13% ERS and Zach at only 10%. So both of them have completely depleted what they have to offer on this track for their battery. And now the DRS will be open for the Red Bull. Is he going to be close enough? Does he need the DRS? Does he have just the setup to do it? He's got the setup to do it, but he's backing out. He's backing out, and I think he might just be waiting for that final lap, knowing that he's got the pace on the straight to just wait. And on the 29th lap of this race, he's going to try and make that move for the lead of this race, or provisional lead of this race, of course, with the penalties applied, and take that race victory. That
might be his best decision that he might have to take so far. Stick behind of Amos, try not to make a move. Even if he gets within the DRS, just do not use it. Like, save up as much battery as possible. The Amos currently struggling a lot. and I did see a lot of support for Amos in the chat, and there is none right now. So come on guys, let's get a few comments going. Let's try and cheer up Amos, even though he's not looking at the comments or maybe not even watching the race. But at least if he does watch back later, then he knows you guys were supporting him, and who knows, maybe some of you guys are. Good luck for him. Killian getting really close to Zach over here. Killian 67% of ERS, unfortunately 3-second time penalty, so that does mess with it a little bit, but he can end up using quite a bit of his ERS now. Moving back, shifting a focus to Zach and Amos here. Zach using up his DRS, and he's actually had to use up a bit of his battery. 3 white now between Killian, Amos, and Zach has actually moved up into P2. Patrick getting really close to Amos now. Amos, by the looks of it, will be losing out on a lot of positions here. He is on a massive pace deficit so far. That is Ballant and Snatch battling it out, and Snatch does manage to keep his P6 with him. Getting really close, these guys. There's only about 4 laps left in this race.
4 laps left of this race, and Snatch is on fire. He's gained now 2 positions, and he's already trying to go for a move on Patrick. He's gone for the inside line, and now coming into the second sector, into corner 8, then 9. He has taken 5th place with ease, and he has not got that far to go to try and get in contention for a podium finish. 4 laps to go. There is a yellow flag. Hopefully that will be clear, and I think that is for the Williams in the pits. But Snatch now is going to try and close that gap. He's got 4 tenths ahead of him to Amos without any time penalties. But Amos is already using his ERS. He's trying to keep that gap, trying to keep Snatch at bay and stay as close as possible without getting too much dirty air and as much toe as he can to defend. But now it is another DRS train to the line.
Killian making a move on Zach without having to use any of his ERS. Quite an easy one for him. Zach still struggling with his ERS levels here, hanging around the 10%, whereas Amos has actually managed to go back up to 20%. Snatch, as you said, getting really close to Amos here. Won't be a threat to Amos in terms of the time penalties, but in terms of actual pace, he does have a lot of time that he could end up losing. Right now, Zach will be winning this race with Amos in P2. What can Amos do? If he loses out on a few more positions, he will be losing out on a lot of time, and that could mean, you know, that P1 getting further and further away from him. Zach, I think, might actually end up winning this race.
Wow, commentator's curse, mate. We can't be saying that just yet. We got 3 laps left to go. We're about to start the 27th lap of this race. And whilst Lucas is certainly flying he's smooth sailing on pole, he does have 15 seconds of time penalties. That's not going to help him at all. As Miriam has said in chat, Snatch does have a massive pace advantage, but the question is he may have the pace advantage, but does he have enough of a pace advantage to pull out a 3-second gap behind? He has Patrick as a bit of a buffer zone, along with everyone else with 3 seconds, but he's got 2 drivers ahead of him with no penalties. He has to his only hope for a podium position is that the drivers ahead of him make some level of an error that completely ruins their race, whether it be a time penalty or a loss of position and a spin of the car, as we have Patrick unfortunately losing a position with the Red Bull managing to put his nose just down the inside and say that I want this position. So Patrick, again, losing positions. That 9 seconds is not going to help him at all. And I think 2 drivers are certainly going to want to forget this race, and that's going to be the likes of Lucas and Patrick for the number of penalties that they have. But equally, I do understand frustrations that they may have, as a lot of complaints have come from the drivers that this track is horrible for track limits. You can just narrowly stay inside the limits, and it will still penalize you with no warning at all.
Yeah, this track is a bit dodgy in terms of track limits, as you just said, and the drivers have been complaining about it as well. But is this something they'll have to deal with until Codemasters maybe fix this? And Miriam saying the same thing. If Zach gets a penalty, Amos wins. Well, We don't know how many track limit warnings does Zach have on him right now, but by the current looks of it, it might not be it as we do start the penultimate lap of this race. Zach getting once again really close to Killian here, and as long as Killian holds up Zach, Amos might be right back into the contention, or not, since he's down back down to 10% ERS, whereas Zach has actually managed to save up to 20%.
Zach,
oh my god!
That is it. He has got nothing left now for a possible victory at this race. And now Amos is sitting in net P1 after penalties. As you said it, Miriam, in chat, Zach just has to get a penalty and Amos has got the win in the bag. I say win in the bag, still a lap and a half to go, and I'm not going to give a curse to anyone. I know that curse exists and I'm not going to give it to anyone. And we got Snatch. He's burning as much ERS as he can. He's trying to get ahead of Amos before the DRS zone, and they're trying to go too wide. There's a bit of a contact between the two of them. The front right and the rear left for the Mercedes and the Alpine driver. Snatch is almost pushing him ahead of Sol, and Lucas gets another 3 seconds. Lucas is not enjoying this race at all. But Snatch is burning his ERS as much as he can to close that gap down, trying to go for the best maximum exit speed, and he does. He's got the DRS, he's got the ERS, he's going too wide, and he takes 4th place from Amos. So whilst Amos may be in the prime position for taking a race victory, he's not in a prime position on track, because if there's enough of a gap for Zach and enough of a gap for Snatch, Amos could just lose that P1 and potentially finish out this race in P2, and it's down to this one final lap, and he's already half a second behind in this first sector.
Yeah, he is struggling. That ERS level being on the lower end, down to 5 or so percent, is absolutely not helping him. And yeah, we can see Zach trying his best to keep that P3, but the podium order is completely mixed up. Now we know for a fact that as long as Amos can keep it in this race, does not make a mistake in the next sector and a half, the win does go to him. But the question is, what will be the rest of the podium look like? What will be P2? Who will be P3? It's going to be really interesting to see. Snatch has done a lot of work to come up into P4, at least on track. Daniel picking up a 3-second penalty, and Patrick picking up another one himself, so I think that's around 12 or so seconds for him. And let's go on board Amos right here, as Lucas does come across the line to win the race on the track. But our real winner here, Amos, using up all of his ERS, comes across the line to win this race. Killian is P2 and Zach does manage to keep it in P3. Snatch respectably up into P4, despite what sort of a strategy and what sort of a race he had. Valiant in P5, Marcel in P6, Lucas P7 after all of that, and Patrick missing out on a P7 very, very narrowly here, as he does finish in P8, with both the Williams guys taking P9 and P10, Haas P11 and P12, Danny the last of the finishes in P13, and the rest of the guys unfortunately did DNF.
Vamos indeed for Amos. As he manages to secure a very comfortable, I say a very comfortable, half a second race victory, just purely on merit of keeping his car on the track, and away from track limits.
Absolutely, that is what I was fearing, that it might happen. It has happened. Nothing bad though. Luckily, Amos has won, and the chat does go quite a bit wild already. A lot of support for Amos, Medium especially, Gaprox. So yeah, quite a few guys in there getting really excited for Amos winning. And if you don't mind Darkness, in the meanwhile that I run through the grid, could you ping the drives and ask them if they're up for the podium interviews, please?
Indeed, let's find out.
I think I for real jinxed Zach. Well, yeah, I mean, it happened, 2 corners later. So, yeah, you might have jinxed Zach quite a bit. But yeah, you can see Amos starting P3, finishing the race in P1. Killian starting in P11 and finishing the race in P2. So, quite a bit of an effort from him. Zach in P3, Snatch P4. Valiant P5 lost out on a lot of positions here, 3 positions deficit compared to where he started.
Who finished
Marcel.
P3 again? Zach.
Yeah, Zach is P3. Ban is Zach. But yeah, Marcel in P6 only gaining 1 position. Lucas being the biggest loser. I unfortunately have to admit it. He lost out on an easy P1, had a lot of pace, but that penalty situation did not help him at all. 18 seconds worth of penalties by the end of it. Patrick in P8 finished where he started. Oil in P9, Ikor in P10, and Daniel P11, and Danny P12, Sol P13, Alex P14, Need P15, Frankie P16, Cameron last of the grid over here. Really interesting race, but I'd say it's time we move on to the podium interviews here. Oops, give me a second. There we go.
We've got Killian waiting right now, just waiting on Amos and Zach to join as well.
Brilliant. Well, in the meanwhile, when we wait for the drivers, how about you sum up the race in a few words?
Exhilarating and exciting. I mean, I wasn't expecting so many drivers to get track limit penalties, but I guess I was very much wrong with that. And it's nice to see a familiar name such as Snatch. But having said that, a familiar name doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win. And I'm a little disappointed to say the least, but I'm also excited because if we had that many penalties on a track like this and Snatch making such a recovery drive, and we've got 3 different constructors on the podium, what do we have in store for the rest of the season?
Yeah, well, we do have quite a bit by the looks of it. All of the drivers, especially in the top 5, top 6, were really close to each other, so it could be anyone's game as of yet, since we're only 2 rounds in, so it's not completely done for pretty much anyone. No one's dominating like that, although we did see Lucas did put in quite a bit of a performance for himself, but clearly not enough, especially because of the time penalties in this 10 race season, actually 11 race season. Next up will be Saudi Arabia, and in the meanwhile, let's get all of our podium sitters in. Alright then, Darkness, why don't you get us started away with our P3? That will be Banner's Sack.
Zach, first of all, congratulations on the podium finish. It was very unfortunate to see right towards the end of the race you received that 3-second time penalty. Really just stole that race victory from you. But first of all, how was that race for you overall?
Hello. 3-second time penalty. Pick up my win, I think. I have win in my hands, and that was very bad.
Indeed, it was. It was unfortunate to see that the race victory was lost at that moment, but still a podium finish. That's still a very good position to be in for the second round. Still must be very proud of yourself for how that went.
Yeah, that was very great results on this race. P3 is very good position. I think quali is my better. Sorry, I have so shit quali. I lost very big time, and race is so good. And yeah.
Do you have any questions, Simply?
Absolutely, no, you've pretty much covered everything. But congrats on the P3 regardless, Zach.
Thank you.
Moving on to our P2 sitter then Killian in the Aston Martin. Quite a bit of an interesting race for you. You looked pretty much on the pace from the beginning. Were mentioned quite a few times, I guess, by one of us to win the race. But yeah, the 3 second time penalty didn't help you at all. Although quite a few drivers were struggling with it, still quite a bit of pace on you.
Yeah, it was a pretty decent race. I bottled quali and validated my final run in like the second last corner or something, which the lap time should have put me up to P2, which would have been a much better starting position, obviously, and made it much easier for myself. Nevertheless, the race was actually very nice. I had some very nice battling, especially with Zach or Basak, whatever, or Banasak. Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, my penalty I basically got from just going for too big or too wide entries, like all three of my warnings, just opening up the corner a little bit too much. Nothing really to do with like lack of skill, just yeah, a little bit of unconcentration, I'd say, just before some corners. But yeah, besides that, a very fun race, and I think I managed it quite well in the end to stay ahead of Bendesak.
Yeah, well, a great race from you regardless, and amazing pace. And unfortunately, we couldn't catch race 1, but by the looks of race 2, it could be on for you as well in terms of the championship condition.
Yeah, indeed. I'm just a reserve driver, unfortunately. But goal is still to try to race as many races as possible, and pace is definitely there. So I'm gonna go for the title, nevertheless.
Absolutely, and considering that we didn't really have, a full grid here, maybe you might get a lot more chances to race, and who knows, we could be seeing you often here.
Exactly. Hope so.
Yeah, well, still congrats, and Darkness, take it away with our fan favorite race winner, Amos.
Well, Amos, well done, first of all, with that race victory. I mean, it's very well deserved. You managed to get through the entire race whilst everyone else was struggling with track limits. You got through completely unharmed. I mean, how many warnings did you have to go through? Or did you not have any warnings at all?
No, I had just one warning for go too inside in turn 7. So honestly, a shit I'm a place to take a penalty because I didn't gain anything, but just one, yes.
Just one, and you managed to luck out against everyone else who had 3 seconds, 9 seconds, and the race leader with 15 at the very end there. So congratulations with that. But that qualifying for you was that qualifying any good for you? Do you think that was truly where your pace was, or did you think you had more time in the lap?
But I need to say that this is my first official race after 2 years and a half on Formula 1. So I can say that I was a bit anxious for the quali in the quali because normally I have no pace in quali every time. Really no pace, but I'm always confident on the consistency that I have in a race without taking any penalty or take anyone out. I think that there was a Williams that was so dangerous, I think, when he was with the hard, and I stayed really far to him. And then I just said to myself, let's finish on the podium, because I started on P3. Just finish on the podium, and then I saw Banana that he took a penalty. I said in 1 millisecond, okay, he took a penalty, and I started to go down with the tires because I was one of the first to pit, so I was really struggling at the end. But I was in the DRS train, so honestly, it was it was simple to follow them, but it was also simple to manage to stay on track because we are always really close all together, and 3 seconds are a lot.
Indeed it is. Well, it was a brilliant race. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm sure Simply did as well.
Absolutely.
I look forward to see what you have in store for us for the future races.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Have a nice night.
Yeah, you
too. Thank you very
and
much.
yeah, Simon says hello to you. quite a bit of support for you in the chat as well. I'm pretty sure people would love to see you back here on the podium and hopefully again on the top step. But yeah, congratulations, man. Thank you so much.
I hope so. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. All right, well then, guys, that was our podium interviews, and yeah, that's round 2 of of tier 4 here. Thank you so much for joining in. We do have Saudi Arabia coming up next. I haven't driven that track on this game, but from what I do know, I absolutely love to drive it, and yeah, once again, a very qualifying type track, but shouldn't cause too much. If anything, going by what we saw today, we could see an amazing race there, maybe with a little bit more chance of a safety car.
Indeed. I mean, I've raced it. It is a very thrilling track, considering how much better the game is compared to last game cycle. I certainly look forward to what kind of overtakes we have. I suspect we will have quite a few DRS chicken games being played out in that third sector.
Absolutely, there's gonna be quite a few Max Verstappen type games playing there, but then again, we'll have to wait until the next week to see what happens. For now, that has been it from myself as well as Darkness and PC Tier 4. Thank you so much for tuning in and showing all of your support for Amos or any other driver that you guys did show any support for. We'll catch you guys in the next week. Until then, make sure you guys stay hydrated and obviously take care of yourselves. Good night.